Hello, recappers. Today's movie starts with a woman's life being turned upside down after she receives an anonymous tip suggesting that her husband is having an inappropriate relationship with one of their adopted children. One morning at the police station, an officer asks the troubled Adia if there have been any problems at home recently, but she just stares blankly ahead. When the officer asks if she noticed anything strange or if her parents were acting differently before the incident on Sunday, Adia struggles to hold back her tears. 2 days earlier, Adia's adoptive mother, Deline, finishes an online interview. In the interview, she talks about how children first learn about violence in their homes. She also shares that because her family is multinational, she believes that the value of a person's life, regardless of ethnicity, class, or background, is something they first learn at home. After the interview, Deline lets her hair down and looks out the window at her husband, Antoine, who is cleaning the pool. A few minutes later, she goes to their bedroom to change into her swimsuit, then heads to the kitchen, where her husband asks how the interview went. She tells him it went well, but that she felt sad afterward. Despite his objections, she insists he should make a drink for their son, who is leaving in 2 days. Asen, their adopted son, shows Adia how to take care of his pet snails before he leaves to study in New York. He warns her never to let Lily, the poisonous snail, escape. Adia then tells him she's staying at a friend's house the next day, which upsets Asen because he wanted to spend his last day with her. She quickly says she was joking and that she'll stay home. Before she leaves, she sadly tells him it will feel strange without him in the house. Later, after Antoine and Asen play Scrabble, Antoine flips Adia's pool float as a joke. She gets upset because she almost dropped her phone. He helps her out of the pool and gives her a towel. Deline then brings drinks for the family. While they relax, she asks Antoine about his new book, and he admits he's worried about negative reviews. Suddenly, Deline gets a phone call from a woman who refuses to give her name. She claims to be a co-worker of Antoine and says that on Tuesday night, he got drunk and told her he was having an inappropriate relationship with one of his children. Shocked, Deline questions her, but the woman insists she's telling the truth. Still shaken, Deline asks her assistant Julien to trace the number. He later says he can't, because the call came from a phone booth in Paris. Deline goes back outside and looks suspiciously at Antoine. Then she notices Adia sunbathing without a top and tells her to cover up. As she watches her children joking around with their father, her mind goes back to the phone call. Worried, she goes inside to check Antoine's phone. She also looks through Adia's room and finds condoms hidden in a drawer. Later, she joins Asen in his bedroom and they share a joint. She asks if he knows whether Adia is dating someone. He jokes that he won't reveal his sister's secrets. Deline says she just wants to make sure Adia is safe. Asen wonders if the weed is making her paranoid. Meanwhile, Adia asks Antoine if they'll visit Asen in New York, and he says yes. She makes a heart out of a plastic bottle and gives it to Asen, who promises to keep it close. When Deline returns outside, she can't find her husband and daughter. She eventually sees them in the kitchen, where Antoine is putting cream on a burn on Adia's thigh. Because of the phone call, Deline imagines something inappropriate happening. She asks what's going on, and they explain that Adia burned herself while melting the plastic bottle. Deline scolds Antoine for using the wrong cream. In the bathroom, while treating the burn, Deline brings up the condoms she found. Adia gets upset and says she and her friends bought them as a joke. She storms out, saying her mother worries too much. To calm herself, Deline looks in the mirror and takes some medication. She tells Antoine she's leaving for a school meeting. Later, Asen chews on ice and asks Antoine for a sandwich. Antoine agrees but tells him to stop crunching the ice. Meanwhile, Deline stops at a dam and calls Antoine's colleague Bridget to ask about the party. Bridget says Antoine was drunk but behaved normally. After the call, Deline stares down from the dam, thinking about everything she has learned. In the present, Alan tells the police officer that, even though his mother was against him going to New York for school, his father encouraged him since it's the best university for entomology. He adds that Deline always had something to do or someone to meet, which is why he and his sister spent most of their time with Antoine. Finally, the cop wonders if both parents knew that one of Alan's snails is poisonous, and Alan nods. 2 days ago, the family enjoys dinner at a restaurant, where the father notices that his wife and daughter aren't on speaking terms. After Antoine and Alan step away for a moment, Adia apologizes to her mother for her behavior earlier, and finally admits that she's been seeing a guy from school named Adam. Deline calmly points out that the only thing she wants between them is honesty and transparency, implying that she doesn't mind if the teen starts dating. Later that night, the family has after-dinner drinks with friends, and the children dance with their parents. However, once they arrive at the house, Alan blurts out that he doesn't want to go to New York because he'll be all alone again. When he states that he never really had a family, Adia hugs him and promises to visit as often as she can. Then, Antoine embraces his kids. But when Deline sees the touching moment, she tells Alan to stop crying. Hurt by her lack of compassion, Alan storms up the stairs into his room, with Adia following him. Disappointed by how his wife handled the situation, the writer wordlessly walks to the kitchen. In the bedroom, Antoine points out Deline's sour mood the entire day, so she suggests they enjoy some liquor before bed to unwind. The wife reminds her husband that it was his idea to send Alan to New York, and he explains that their son needs to learn how to be independent. Then the lawyer casually brings up the work party and asks if he remembers who helped him when he was intoxicated. Antoine says it was a woman, but that he can't remember who, and the smile on Deline's face immediately disappears, since the mystery caller was also female. Hours later, the writer wakes up in the middle of the night and sees Alan sitting by the pool with an ice bucket next to him. The son shares that he couldn't sleep and tells his adoptive father that they need to tell Deline their secret. Antoine doesn't think it's a good idea because it will break his wife's heart, but Alan counters that he should have considered the consequences 2 years ago. The son thinks the man planned his departure to New York as a convenient way to get rid of him. The writer expresses how much the decision hurts, but adds that he loves his son and his wife in different ways. Suddenly, Alan kisses Antoine, revealing that he, not Adia, is the adopted child the man has been having an affair with. The father gently pushes his son away, just as the clueless Deline looks out the window. Seeing this, she assumes her husband and child are just having a heartfelt conversation. The next day, Deline surprises everyone by delaying Alan's flight for a week to make up for her behavior the night before. Antoine talks to her privately and says she should have asked his opinion first. She replies that she acted on impulse and thought he wouldn't care. Before leaving for the village, Deline secretly calls one of her phones and hides it under a pillow so she can listen to what her family says while she's gone. Meanwhile, Alan tattoos a small snail on Adia's ankle, and they both wonder why their mother changed the flight date so suddenly. Later, Deline listens as the kids join their father in the study. She hears Alan ask Adia to buy worms for his snails. When Antoine and Alan are alone, Alan says he wants to tell his mother that he prefers to leave for New York the next day, as originally planned. Antoine gets annoyed and says Deline has been acting strangely, hinting that she suspects something. Alan complains that Antoine always talks about Deline, but never about him. Antoine gets tired of arguing and goes to the poolside cabana to write. A few minutes later, Alan joins him. They confess their feelings and give in to their affair again. As Deline returns home, she sees Adia on the phone outside. She leaves her car on the road and sneaks through the pool area. There, she catches Antoine and Alan together, confirming the anonymous call was true. Shocked and furious, she calls Antoine a monster. Alan defends their relationship, saying he loves Antoine and wasn't forced. Horrified, Deline orders them to get out of her sight. Not knowing what else to do, Antoine tells Alan to find Adia and take the first train back to Paris. Back in the present, a police officer asks Antoine about Deline's past self-harm. Antoine explains it happened after the death of their biological baby. 2 years later, they adopted Adia, and 7 years later, Alan. When the officer asks if anything unusual happened before Deline's actions, Antoine lies and says no. The day before, Alan had told Adia they needed to leave for Paris because their mother caught them. Adia isn't surprised, showing she already knew about the affair. Soon after, Deline arrives and orders both siblings into the car. Antoine runs after them, saying Adia is innocent. Adia admits she knew, and Alan explains he once told her because she caught them before. Feeling even more betrayed, Deline drives away alone. Later that evening, she drinks heavily, trying to forget what happened. The next morning, Antoine hears his wife's car and goes to meet her by the pool. She tells him she never knew he was attracted to men. Antoine explains that he isn't. He's only attracted to Alan. Even though he insists he still loves her, Deline says things can never go back to normal. He has destroyed their family. She says one of them has to leave, and Antoine replies that that's why he wanted Alan to go to New York. Deline says Alan is still leaving tomorrow as planned, so they should act like a normal family for one last day. Before walking away, she tells Antoine she wishes she had never met him. A few minutes later, she tells her children to put on their swimsuits so they can enjoy the day. As she passes by the window, she sees Antoine and Alan staring at each other with longing. Determined, she takes the poisonous blue snail, Lily, and blends it into a drink. Then she places the poisoned drink with 2 identical glasses. She spins the tray so even she doesn't know which one is poisoned. Finally, she gives her daughter the only safe drink and lets Antoine and Alan choose theirs. The lion takes a sip first and immediately tastes something strange. She leans back on her chair and waits for the poison to take effect. And that's how our story ends. What did you think about the ending? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this recap, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you don't miss our next breakdown.